G'day. Thanks a heap for joining us here on the channel. I appreciate your time, and I hope that this video finds you well and life is treating you fair and well. Anyway, I haven't done a lot of podcasts. This is pretty new to me, and it's the first one ever I've actually published on the channel, so I hope you find it interesting. I was very lucky to be invited on this podcast by Iain Fergusson. He's New Zealand's International Men's Day Coordinator, amongst other things. And the other bloke was Pettitt. He's the CEO of the Canterbury Men's Centre. Both of these guys, top shelf good bastards, do a lot for men in their community, and I appreciate the work they do, and I also appreciate the fact they let me yak a bit about the topic of us men, which I'm no authority on, but I'm going to share this with you anyway. If you don't enjoy it and you don't like it, please let me know too, because like I said, it's the first time I've done a podcast, and it's just something new I thought I'd add to the channel. But I need your feedback to know if it's worth doing in the future or not, so let us know on that. Anyway, sit back and enjoy Men's Talk.
We're going to jump right in. Thanks for joining us today, Clay. You've had quite an adventurous life. Perhaps you could introduce yourself and talk a wee bit about your journey.
Yeah, I guess you could say it has been pretty adventurous, Iain. I grew up in the Abel Tasman National Park. My father was a ranger there until I was 5. I did correspondence lessons for a while. Then when I was 10, we went to Fergusson National Park. He was a ranger there. My parents broke up. I come from a very dysfunctional family. We all get on now because I've made an effort to, but there's been a lot of struggle with keeping the family sort of on track and everybody happy, as there is with many families everywhere. And you know, I've sort of grown up being my own man. I left home when I was 15, lived under the Motueka Bridge for a while, survived from all the basic skills I developed as a boy living in national parks, found my way through the world. And, you know, it's been a really blessed life for me because I've always seemed to have landed on my feet. There's always a silver lining, you know, on every dark cloud that comes along. And I seem to have been, probably more than most have better endurance when things have gone wrong, that they do in everybody's life. And for me, I put that down to the love that my mother gave me when I was very small. She was a very good mum, and I think that love that we get when we're very young is critical to how we go through our lives, whatever life throws at us. So I've always had this inner strength, and you know, I've done different things. I've been a musician in Europe for 13 years. I've worked as a sales rep for a company called Frost Wholesalers. It was a subsidiary of General Motors. So I've been like a front person for a company, and I came back from Europe in 2000 to raise my children 20 years ago, and gave up the sort of bright lights of Europe and the money just to have a very simple life here in New Zealand of fishing, hunting. I'm now growing my own vegetables thanks to COVID-19. That's something that blessed a lot of us Kiwis. We started growing gardens after that because we didn't want to go to the supermarket. And, you know, we're in one of the most amazing countries of the world, but sadly, we also have one of the highest rates of suicide. And, you know, I've got mates around me that are no longer, well, I had mates around me I've lost, you know, through suicide. So that's one of the reasons I've got involved with this. I don't have any credentials, and I don't know anything about, you know, psychiatry or psychology. I just basically talk from my heart and try to put things in terms that my mates can understand. And you know, I look at someone with a broken mind very much the same way as I look at a broken engine. It can be fixed, just having the right tools to do it and dealing with it methodically. So nothing's unfixable, and I like to spread that word amongst my mates because, you know, I've lost too many as it is. And I've also got mates that are currently struggling with life, you know, and I hate to see that. It's a horrible thing. And the stigma has, I think we're getting, you know, a lot of people in New Zealand have helped remove that stigma. You know, John Kerwin's been fantastic, you know, with his talks. A lot of people today, it's changed a lot. It's a different world we're in today. So we can talk about these things and then move forward with the good stuff, you know. It's a very deep rooted problem in our culture where men don't talk enough. And this comes to the staunch upbringing, you know, something that makes us very good on the rugby field. You know, we're tough on that, but there's a point where it actually ends up doing more damage than good. In the farming industry, the forestry industry, the fishing industry, everywhere you'll find, you know, men that are locking it up, and then one day they do something terrible. Yeah.
Clay, I was just a brief, because many people wouldn't know you as the famous Clay from Tall Stories. Maybe you could say a little bit about your YouTube channel now. And I invite that. I know she got 50,000 subscribers, and I mean, I guess I wanted to give people an opinion, or sorry, an idea of what you're actually doing, and then like you've gotten right into the whys. You know, you obviously really passionately care about men, and I just wanted to cue them in just a bit more about the who you are doing, who you're doing, you know, like your YouTube channel in particular, because that looks like it's been highly successful in getting your message out. And maybe start talking about that a little bit, as well as your motivations and what you expressed through that.
Yeah, Donald, it's funny, the YouTube channel was almost like a mistake. I was a musician and I had a hunting accident quite a few years back, and I tore the infraspinatura of my right shoulder and I couldn't play guitar on stage. So I thought it'd be a smart idea to start a channel and maybe sell my music on there. And the whole idea completely flopped. And after I got to 20,000 subscribers, somebody said, "Why don't you start a Patreon?" Where, because I actually ran at a loss running the channel. It was running at $10,500 loss each year, and for 3 years I was in the hole like $40,000 almost. So I had to knock it on the head, but everybody wanted to keep going. So Patreon was born, which is a platform for creators where people put $2 a month in, and that's why the channel's still going today. And predominantly the channel, what it was doing was something I've always done, was taking young men out that don't have fathers, either fishing or hunting. And that was something I've been doing. I've got men now that come and see me that are adults that come around to stack my firewood or have a cup of tea or help me with something on the farm here. So it's something that's not new, but I did have it on the channel, and a lot of the funding that I get, because we do a hunt every weekend or fishing or something, is now funded by Patreon. So that's been my motivation to keep the channel going. It's a lot of work, but it has been very successful, and it's a funny channel because it's got a funny name, and it's one that actually won Hunting Channel of the Year award by Field Sports Britain in 2016. And the really interesting thing about that was that particular year I didn't even shoot one deer. Because I'm not actually the best hunter in the world. I'm pretty average, I catch a few pigs and shoot a few rabbits, but I think people probably relate more to it because I don't just show highlights. I show all the imperfections of the reality of of hunting and fishing and life. Today I went out fishing and all I caught was seaweed on the line, so I came home with a bag of seaweed for the garden, try to turn it around into something good.
Yeah, I discovered you from one of your YouTube videos posted on Reddit. It was someone had stolen one of your little short videos, put it on their channel, and someone had posted it on Reddit. And so now that video has got like 800,000 views, and your version has only got like 20 or 30,000 views. So, but that's how I discovered you. It was one of those little. You're out on a boat, and you're talking about if the motor breaks down, you would call someone for help. And then if you had a bit of a breakdown in your head, you should also call someone for help. And that came across really well. That for the guy who stole the video, 800,000 views, lots of positive comments on the Reddit thread that I discovered it from. Everyone seems to have responded really well to those little short, I don't know what you call them, encouragement videos.
I've got a few of those, Ian. That is a funny one because not only because my channel is a hunting channel and the algorithm hates anything that's got blood in it. And of course, we go hunting and we teach the boys how to skin a deer, how to gut a deer. And so I just don't get the views that you normally would get. And I'm actually happy it got stolen. I'm happy the message got out there. I really couldn't care less at the end of the day. That particular video got over 1 million views on QN Hooked in Australia on their Facebook site. It went over 1 million. Actually, a lot of sites that went over 1 million. And it was viral. It went on everything. It went on every different platform, and yet to my platform it went nowhere, which is quite typical of my platform. Most of my stuff doesn't go very, very far because YouTube deems me as being unadvertisable. They can't make any money out of me. So that's okay because someone else picks it up and it gets out there. And I've had a lot of people write back to me saying it literally saved their life, that message. So that's a good thing, We're winning.
Yeah, brilliant. I've looked at a few of your videos, but there's lots. Was it you do one a week?
No, I do one a day.
One a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, my patrons get a video every day. Today I went fishing. Like I said, I only caught seaweed. So and then I spilt a boiling water down this arm. I don't know if you can see it's completely red. I've burnt all my arm, and
Oh no.
yeah. So I'm gonna so that's that's an accident that's happened, and that'll be in that video because it's just it's a window of what's going on, and I really enjoy keeping a diary of my life for myself because the videos, people either love them or hate them, but I can look back because I've got a shocking memory, and I look back and I can see what happened on that day, what I did, and because I always tell the truth, I always tell exactly as it is. I don't have to even remember anything, and that's the thing about if you tell lies, and people do, we all tell lies mostly to stop hurting other people or to better ourselves. But if you don't tell lies, then you don't have to remember anything. And if you've got a crap memory like me, you better not tell any lies because you'll catch yourself out. So I've got this day-to-day vlog, which is very honest, exactly what's happening, and it's a handy tool for me to have. But it also pays for all the work I do because the patrons that watch it, they put in their $2 a month, and they get this inside information, and it's a lot of fun actually, and it connects me up. I've got 92% males following me and 8% women, so it's really a sight for men. I appreciate the 8% of women I've got there though, because they add a little bit of balance because it gets a lot of testosterone floating around on that site sometimes, and it's good to have a bit of balance there occasionally.
Yeah. Now, one of the things you just said was you're honest. Your videos are honest. And that a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, we spoke to a couple of guys from the University of Canterbury who've started a club called Lads Without Labels, which is kind of a mental health support group for the young men at the university. And one of the issues they said they were having was that social media is not real, but that's where most people see what their friends are doing, but it's not really what they're doing. It's a kind of highlights best of reel of people's lives, and that hasn't. They were saying that has an impact because you don't get into a realistic view of the world. You get this kind of unobtainable ideal that you're kind of comparing yourself to. So
it's damaging, mate. It's damaging. It does a lot of damage. I particularly think for younger people. TikTok is a classic. You've got all these beautiful women, and they're all like 17, 18. They all got perfect bodies, and so the more perfect they are, the more voted they get. So the more people that see them, and the other 98% of young women or young men seeing that, they can't compete with that, and they end up, with all sorts of self-doubt about their, who they really are, and that, and it does a lot of damage. It's actual. We're going to see the fallout from that too. In fact, we're seeing it already. So yeah, it's not a good thing, and that's why I like to show all my shitty bits, all my bad bits, And
Gee,
I think
Clay, I wonder if you're making us feel good because we're better than you.
Yeah,
that's it.
Something like that, Donald. Yeah.
But what do you think it is? You're obviously providing value to people. I mean, they're even willing to get their credit card out and put $2 in a month or whatever. And what is it you're thinking you feel like you're giving people? What kind of feedback do you get?
Look, to put that in a way, because I always like to check my ego, and ego it's a monster. We all have it and we all need it. Otherwise, we wouldn't put ourselves out there. But it's also can cause us a lot of pain, and ego also causes us a lot of separation. It's ego that stops us connecting up with people. We suddenly think we're either above them or we judge them. So I try to keep my ego right to a minimum, yet put myself still out there on a regular basis, and that's a balancing act for me because I'm sort of going around your question, but
yeah.
I'm not going directly to it, but I do want to get to it.
Do honor it.
Yeah, so I like to put something there which gives people a perspective that their day could be a lot better than what they're making it, but without bringing my ego into it. So I'm having a great time, but I'm not saying, hey, I'm having a great time, you're not. I'm saying, trying to portray it like, here we are having a great time, you could do this too. So I try to do everything with minimal amount of money spent, Like I'll go fishing with a $20 warehouse rod and go to the beach and cook a meal, and anybody can just about afford to do that. And it will change somebody's perspective if they can get themselves out of bed an hour earlier in the morning and go and catch that fish themselves and cook it. They'll feel different. So people love the simplicity of what I'm doing. It's not a complicated thing. It's a very basic thing, a very basic human thing to go and gather your own food, to cook it, sustain yourself. I like to do it in a way that's reachable for anybody, for a 7-year-old boy, or for a 40-year-old man. And I think that's what my channel. I think that's why it's popular. It encompasses everybody. Could be doing what Clay's doing. You know, you don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to be very clever. I'm not a great fisherman. I'm not a great hunter. I'm not actually great really much at anything, but I'm out there doing it. So that's part of, to answer your question, but it's a wee bit more than that too, because I also entertain a lot. I entertain quite a bit. Sorry about the sounds coming through though. I don't know how to turn that off. Okay. Yeah, I've being an entertainer on stage for many years, I've learned how to keep things so they're engaging, and as soon as you turn that camera around and show on your face, people read not only the words you're saying, but more importantly, your body language and your facial expressions. So yeah, keeping that so it's understandable, clear, and interesting, and also trying to bring a bit of humor into it, because we get so caught up in being serious, and it's a serious old world, and it's kind of nice to bring stuff that's a little bit inappropriate. That's a balancing act too on YouTube, because you can say you're going to offend somebody. I think if you're not offending somebody occasionally, then you're probably doing it wrong too. You've got to just speak what you say, and stuff what people really think. Go with your truth when you're speaking, and it's very easy to always think, hold on a minute, will this upset somebody? But I don't do that. I take it on the chin when I get it, and I do. I do upset people. I'm not always PC. It's particularly about men's rights. I think that the pendulum swung too far the wrong way now. Men have been stripped of a lot of their masculinity, and this always evokes a lot of criticism when I talk about this. People say, well, why don't you take girls out hunting? Well, I leave that job for the woman to do. I think that men have a hard time on many levels. I think men have a hard time with losing children in custody. It always seems to be the woman that win that battle, and I could name 3 suicides that happened to men in Australia just in the last year, of all men that have lost that custody battle. So what's the good there? This sort of equality thing's almost gone too far the other way, and I try to help men reclaim that, because a lot of men have lost that. It's a complicated issue, and it goes a lot deeper than just what we're skimming over the surface here, Donald. I think you know what I'm talking about, but
well, I've definitely taken care of a lot of men going through those kind of issues, and it's a very powerful thing to be separated from your children. As a father, I know obviously people, I think intuitively we're much more likely to understand what it's like for a woman to be separated from her kids, but it's still not intuitively obvious for me that it hurts when you don't see your child as a dad for a week, a month, and to know they're just across town and you can't see them. I mean, that's I get the many men I've cared for through the Canterbury Men's Center. When they tell me that, sometimes it's probably right that they're not able to see their kid for that month or whatever, but even then, that pain and that loss and that grieving is so intense and very biological, I think. But once again, I don't think it's intuitive to most. We don't immediately leap forward. And what I got from when your response about the value you give to people and your value in yourself, of course, Clay, but it sounds to me like you take them on an adventure.
Yeah, we do.
It reminds me of like a kids program. It's like, we're going on an adventure today, and it's not to conquer dragons. It's to just be out there and be real and be in the moment, and have this clever chatty guy beside you talking about things while he's doing it and reflecting on his own personal journey. So it sounds like an intimate journey even.
It is, because we have a lot of boys that either come from community college, or somebody will recommend me. A lot of these young fellas just are completely without father. I've got one boy, I won't say his name, and he told me the other day that his father told him when he was 6 years old, I never want to see you again. I asked him what was the best day of his life and the worst day of his life, and that was the worst day of his life. And I asked him what was the best day, And a year and a half ago, he recently got accepted to be adopted into a family. And he said that was the best day of his life when his mother and father said, his new mother and father said, we want you to be our son. You know, he'd been a foster child, but we want to adopt you. And that was the best day of his life, you know. And it comes down to the common thing that all of us want, and that's to be accepted and loved. You know, you can break it down as much as you want, but it's pretty much what it comes down to. So, you know, young guys like that I take out, they are craving to be accepted, and they're also craving to have a role model because they haven't had a good role model. And I'm probably not the best role model in the world, but I do the best I can. I probably I do swear too much, and I'm a bit rough around the edges. But I think overall, most of the boys that I've looked after over the years that are now men that come back and see to me are pretty well rounded, and they've got some direction in their life. A lot of them have become forestry workers, professional meat cullers, fishermen, farmers, and they're doing okay. You know, not all of them. Some of them back in prison. The worst ones that I have had to look after are the ones who have been sexually interfered with as children, and they have also gone on to reoffend themselves. I've had 14 and 15-year-olds that have actually reoffended. They themselves have been interfered with and abused as children, and then they've gone on to do the same thing, you know, at the age of 14 and 15 and gone to lockup. And then, of course, when they come out, nobody wants to be associated with that sort of young man. Nobody wants to take them under their wing. Nobody wants to be associated because they already have victims that they have left. So you'll be judged by the company you keep. They're difficult ones for me to look after. I have taken them on board. Some of them have turned out to be okay, but man, that sort of damage, you know, it's really difficult to. Somebody in our community's got to look after them. Someone's got to step up. So it's a risk because you're also putting yourself at risk by taking those guys and looking after them. But I have done it. And I think when I'm lying on my deathbed and I look back at life, I'll be grateful that I said yes and put my hand up, because I think there's one thing we don't want to do is get to the end of our life and find ourselves reflecting back on when we could have helped somebody and we didn't. I think it's always important when you get a chance to stand up, you know. So as much as it's not even spectacular or amazing to talk about those things, it's important to address them. And I have no problem addressing them. And I will address them again in the future too, no doubt, because there's always damaged people like that in our community around us.
And Clay, I'll bring to your attention that the men's center that I run, we have 3 peer support workers working with male survivors of sexual abuse. So I'm very attuned to the long-term journey and recovery for the many men that we deal. So I'm good on you for you know, especially making a special note of the special harm done to those boys at the time, and thank you for your early work. You know, hopefully you made a transformative impact on their lives and give them something to pivot from. Yeah, save them.
It's a terrible one. I was at the wharf the other day fishing, and there was a man. He was 74 years of age, and he was standing beside me there, and we got talking, and you know, he himself had been abused when he was 13 years of age, and he told me that it was as fresh in his mind on that day as it was back then. And one of the things was his father had never stood up against him and protected him, and that was the thing that hurt him the most. And his father hadn't validated what happened because it was embarrassing to the family. You know, he'd sort of stuck it under the rug. And that's another thing too, because it's got a lot of stigma attached to it. I think a lot of the worst mental health problems that I've met in men my age or even older than me is when they've got problems that haven't been validated by either their parents or someone close by, and they've just been like brushed away and they haven't been dealt with. You know, they never get repaired. That's like an open wound for these guys.
Yeah. I strongly echo that. I've done intake work with maybe 1,500 men, and a good quarter of those guys are survivors of sexual abuse, and we're the first person that ever asked them. They're 35, 40 years old, and I think that lack of the fact that we're not really screening for that story in men, story of historic trauma, and I just wonder, like, I'm very hopeful though. Are you? Because I find that I think, you know, the fact is I'm running a service that the government pays to take care of these men. To me, that's a huge cultural transformation, the concept of men as victims and providing care services. And thank you to all those that enable that. And I think we're doing some core foundational recovery work for men, you know, getting those stories out there. Even we're talking about it right here, aren't we? You know, there'll be 20-year-old men hopefully listening to our story now. We did an interview on this on our podcast. So thank you for telling one of those harder stories about young men that doesn't get out there.
Yeah.
So I imagine as well that when those many people, another thing you're providing is a doorway to young men's minds. Do you think that's in the feedback you get on your comment, your YouTube, is it about that, or is it about you? Because are these the straight men to your cartoon character? Because was it W.C. Fields said never play beside a child or something, no children or dogs with you because they steal the show. But it sounds to me like you might be the show and they're kind of the straight man to you.
I don't know. I haven't really broken that down, Donald. But
no, okay.
A lot of the time, you talk about young men's minds, and young men do the most stupidest things. They just do silly things, and often when they do something stupid, which happens a lot with me, particularly, because that frontal lobe just hasn't developed, and they'll do just dangerous, dumb things. And I'll say to them when they do something stupid, I'll say to them, I know exactly what you were thinking when you did that, and they'll look at me, dumbfounded, and they'll go, "What was I thinking?" And I'll say, "Nothing." and they'll be nodding their head, "No, yeah, I wasn't thinking," because they just don't bloody think.
No, that's right.
And a lot of us grown people, we get angry, or see people get angry at these young fellas. They're just not thinking. That's why they make the best, the best fighter pilots, or the best soldiers, or the best anything that's dangerous, because they don't fear or even think about the consequences of the action. My son is a whitewater raft guide, and he started off guiding at the age of 18 up in Taihape. And last year, a girl drowned. She was underwater for 4 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, and she was completely drowned, blue in the face, unconscious. And him and the other guy finally rescued her, and they managed to resuscitate her and bring her back to life. And he was traumatized by this, and now he's 19, and his frontal lobe is starting to develop. And I said to him the other day, "Are you going to go back and do this job?" And he says, "Dan, I've actually phoned them and said I'm a bit fearful of my because guides are also at big risk, and they die on the river. They're doing grade 5. It's dangerous water." And a lot of their guides are young for the simple fact that they just don't really understand the true consequences of how dangerous it is what they're doing, because that part of the brain hasn't developed. Just not there.
Well, there's the counter narrative. The older you get, the more attached you get to life.
That's probably true, actually. Yeah.
I love the risk-taking capacity, and let's celebrate that.
Absolutely.
I remember this one video you were taking some guys pig hunting, and they were talking to each other in the other valley, and you could hear them, and of course they scared the pigs away, and then you had to say, well, guys, you were talking, what do you think is going to happen? And you can kind of see the cogs turning, and the disappointment of realizing that they did, they did something wrong, and they'd
let the team down, hadn't they?
Yeah, and it was, I mean, this isn't spoken, but perhaps it's just me because I was a young man once and have been in that position and can really pick it up. But I think it comes across. I think it gives a real kind of empathetic view into the world of those young men.
Yeah, well said. No, you're right. And it's a balancing act between trying to build these men up, and they are men, they're young men, their nuts are dropped, their voices are deep, they're men, but they're only 14. Their brain, however, hasn't caught up with the rest of their body. So it's really important to build them up, but you've also got to bring to attention the things they're doing wrong so they can move forward. And I call it pressure and release, really. You've got to put pressure on them, but you've also got to slacken the line up a bit and have plenty of encouragement there, because you want them to have a few wins as well. Otherwise, it's just all no fun. And teaching men how to hunt is not easy, because the rule with hunting is you don't be heard, you don't be seen, you don't be smelt, you're completely invisible. And trying to get a young man that can't stop moving his body around to do all those 4 things or 3 things it's pretty near impossible. But you've got to enforce that. And when you do get it, then they start to get the bit of blood on their knife, they get a kill, and then they start to reap the rewards. And it's really only experience that teaches them that. You can talk about it till you're blue in the face, but until you get out in the bush, can't really practice that,
Gee, Clay, I hope us analyzing it doesn't wreck it all for you or those viewers. You're going to get self-conscious all of a sudden and wake up.
No, it's good. It's It's good to question everything. I'm a great believer in that, and it's also good to be criticised. I welcome criticism to my channel and to people. I always say, please, tell me what I. It's great to hear how good you are, but that's just getting a pat on the back, and I don't need that anymore. What I like to hear is where I'm going wrong, because invariably, just like you and everybody else, I'm constantly making mistakes. And these aren't mistakes I want to make too much with the young men I'm teaching. Sometimes I probably am too hard. Probably sometimes I am doing things not right. But the main thing is I'm actually out there doing something, and it's a area that's fought with all sorts of obstacles and human frailties, and there's all sorts of little idiosyncrasies that people have. So there's a clash of personalities going on all the time. Sometimes there's conflict. Sometimes there's ego. Sometimes there's old bull versus young bull. At the end of the day, we want to come out with something that's positive and that those guys can take away, and they can actually one day install into their own sons or their own daughters for that matter. It's a thing that's actually evolving all the time, what I'm doing. And the great thing about it is, the really good thing is that a lot of men are now copying me and going off doing the same thing. And I get so many emails saying, hey, Clay, I've taken a leaf out of your book. I'm now taking this young fella out down the road whose dad was killed in a car accident, or I'm taking this young boy whose father's an alcoholic and doesn't care about him. And so it spreads. So using the social media, using the channel is a great thing for spreading something that's positive. And it's something I've had to pretty much do myself, because I tried to get funding originally. Like the Lions Club wouldn't go. We had a meeting with the Lions Club because we needed a bigger vehicle to take the young guys everywhere, and they just didn't want to look at it because of the health and safety aspect of it, because we are in a dangerous environment all the time. And so they recommended I talk to a lawyer and get a health and safety plan talked up. Well, a lawyer took so much money. We could have taken boys out for probably 4 months on what that cost. And in the end, I just threw the whole lot out the window and said, if something goes wrong really bad, I'll just face the music at the time, but I'm not going to stop this from happening. And thankfully, we've been bloody lucky. The worst we've had in 20 years is a strained finger, which is a pretty bloody good record, considering we're crossing rivers and going over mountains and bluffs and at sea. And so we're doing, our record's pretty good. We had no real major stuff ups. Not to say that couldn't happen, but so far we're pretty good.
You're capturing that spirit of adventure again, Clay. We all want to slough off these limitations of humanity and just do the right thing and go have a fun time, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great. It's amazing. The thing about New Zealand, particularly, is we're really blessed here. I mean, it's just so easy to do. It doesn't cost anything. Department of Conservation give a free permit to hunt. If you're over in, say, in America, or you've got to get a tag. If you're in Germany, you've got to pay for it. Here we can, right, like half an hour from where I'm talking to you, I can go and shoot a deer. 20 minutes, I can go and catch a pig. Half an hour down the road, I can catch a trout. Everything's there on our doorstep. It's just about having the motivation and a few resources. You don't need much, but it's there, and it's a great natural thing to get out in the bush and just move around. Walk. It's very therapeutic to a lot of people. I see people change. One of the other problems I do talk about on my channel a little bit, which I believe is also a problem, is diet. Particularly the last sort of since about the late 70s, diets changed quite a bit with too much sugar and too much refined food. And I've got a lot of men now onto keto diet. Dr. Glenn Davies of the Taupo Medical Centre is a close friend of mine. Him and I were in the Chatham Islands last year, and he's a multi-sport adventure racer. He also was voted by, I think it's a medical company, GP of the Year award this year. He was runner-up. He actually came second in the end, but he basically treats all his patients with exercise and diet, which is an amazing thing, really, and he's having amazing results. He's got a 100% success rate with all his diabetes type 2 patients. And I also have had a terrible, shocking lifestyle most of my life, drinking, smoking, drugs. And it wasn't really until I got prostate cancer a couple of years ago, and my uncle died of the same cancer, and I had advanced where it travelled outside the prostate, 2 tumours, looking like probably not going to do too well. And I made radical shift to my diet then, and it's actually been a really it takes a crisis sometimes before you actually are prepared to make a change. And the changes it's made in my overall health has been spectacular. It's been amazing. And of course, the good thing is I'm still in remission. The cancer hasn't got away again. So that's also a real plus, but I've probably got over 100 men now that are now on keto, and some really amazing stories of how it's changed their whole thinking. You know, guys that have suffered with depression or suffered with anxiety no longer have it. There's a lot to be said about diet. So that sort of, I think, it warrants a lot more investigation, rather than just trying to fix everything with a drug. Maybe look at our lifestyle. You know, most illness that we have, physical illness and a lot of mental illness as well, or psychological, is caused by inflammation. And we know that sugar is one of the biggest drivers of inflammation. So eliminating sugar would be the Dr. Glenn Davies says, you know, nobody should have sugar. Well, I totally agree with him. I think he's absolutely right. So a hard one to knock on the head, because it's a very addictive thing, sugar. But yeah, that's another thing I also push a little bit on the channel. Nobody enjoys hearing about it. Nobody wants me to talk about it. I get a lot of people, you know, telling me to piss off, but I do believe it is a great, it's a great thing if you can change your diet for your mental well-being as well. I think it's part of it. How you feel?
Any idea what percentage of viewership is from outside New Zealand?
Yeah, I have I have the analytics of that. Predominantly, I have about 60 to 65% New Zealand. I have about 20% Australian, and the rest is scattered around the world. A few in the US, a few in Ireland and England, a few in Canada, but yeah, predominantly it's Kiwi audience. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really sweet, because as you say, it's well within our range to you know, most of us to get somewhere where we can get in a kayak or go hunting or fishing or whatever. So it's not far away, and that's something. As a Canadian, I migrated here 30 years ago. I really appreciate about New Zealand, especially the South Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you fish, Donald?
No, I haven't in decades.
Yep.
But I still go on adventures. I go on a lot of adventures. You know,
Yeah,
my
right.
life feels
Awesome.
like an adventure. And I was reading an article today about the importance of doing an AWE practice, AWE, where you go off, and they did this experiment where they had like 30 people go off, and once a week go for a 15-minute walk somewhere nice and just feel awe. And asked, you know, at the end of the 3 months, they asked these 20 people. They found that the lives improved. You know, something about the beauty and the awe of what we were experiencing, the human journey, the beauty of nature, our intimate connectedness with nature, and our tininess in midst all of the wonders of the universe. So, that's probably what you're tapping into in one way or another as well. So once again, I don't want to wreck it for you.
What do you like about men? What do you admire or respect, or what kind of captures your imagination when you think about men?
To me, a real man is a man who's prepared to show empathy, prepared to have compassion, to be okay to be vulnerable, to expose himself. A real bloke to me is a man that says, "Hey, you know, I'm not sure how to do this, but I'll do the best I can." Rather than like a lot of men will feel they've got to compete with other men. And, you know, that's not what being a man is about. Being a man to me is about supporting your brothers, lifting your brothers up. And I love masculinity. I love being a man myself. I love going out and doing manly things. And I don't care what the world deems, you know, today as being a man. To me, being a man is enjoying a fight. I always enjoyed fighting when I was younger. I used to do Sado karate. I did a bit of boxing. It's natural for men to fight, particularly young men. I enjoy being physical. I enjoy treating women in a manly way. That means helping them out with something physical that they may not do so much. And again, you know, you start to stir a bit of, people will say, well, hold on a minute, you know, women are equal. Well, yes and no. There are women out there that are way stronger than you and I will ever be. But on the whole, you know, men are designed for doing certain things, and we do them better than women. That's just a fact. And women do certain things better than we do. And you accept that. You know, women are by far better on the whole at being nurses than men. There's great male nurses out there, but predominantly in the care industry, I think women do a better job than us blokes. Us guys are particularly good at building things. You know, there are female carpenters around there, female builders, but on the whole, men are bloody good builders. I love watching men build stuff. I love building stuff myself. You know, I could probably get branded as being sexist by saying that, but I see that men build incredible things, Women, on the other hand, their skills are in other departments. I think if we come together and work as a team, we've got a beautiful thing going. But of course, today the world isn't like that. We're supposed to be all pretty much the same. And I think in a real world, it doesn't work. I think a good team together can do amazing things, and when they're in harmony, it's a beautiful, well-oiled machine. So men have their part, women have their part, and as far as raising children go, I don't think necessarily a child has to have a mother and a father. They could have two mothers or they could have two fathers. My children were raised by many different people, and they're well-functioning, happy kids today, or young adults, and they had a lot of love. It wasn't just the typical man and woman relationship. It was a lot of people raised them, and it served them well. They're good, balanced kids, and they got the main ingredient. They got love. To go back to Ian's question, being a man, I guess the first relationship I ever had was with my father. As a little boy, I looked up to my dad, and he was this big, strong man. He was a ranger. He was out there, and that was my first. So my role model was my dad. I didn't have a lot of time with my dad. My parents broke up when I was young, but I loved what I saw. He was this capable, man. He was out there bringing fish home. Mum would cook them up. He was bringing a wild pig home. Mum would put that in the oven, and that was my first sort of insight as a child. So I enjoy doing things that men enjoy. Not to say that I don't enjoy the fine arts, because I do. I enjoy. I could go and watch a ballet, or I could go to I love the theatre. My daughter goes to theatre. I love it, but I think the manly things that we've been sort of played down to not do so much today are quite important, particularly for younger men. One of the young guys I look at, his dad basically disowned him, and he was at school and he was being bullied a lot. And one of the boys at school, who was a lot older than him, he was 14 and the other kid was nearly 17. He was calling him a hillbilly, and he said to him one day, no wonder your father doesn't want to know about you. You're a bloody hillbilly. And this online bullying went on, and it went on and on and on. And eventually, the other bloke that I look after, he just had a guts for, and he went up to this kid in the playground, and he knocked him out. He smashed him in the head and he knocked him out. Now, I don't condone violence at all, but from that day onwards, he never got bullied. And the other thing was that the headmaster took him into the office, and I got a phone call from his mother and the headmaster that morning. His mother was crying. She said, I don't know what to do. The headmaster said he can either have a week at home on detention, or he can have a week at school on detention. So I said, right, bring him home right now. I picked him up with a couple of mates. We took him out in the country. We drove over to the east coast. 3 hours later, he was on the hill. He'd shot his first deer. He was dragging it out. He was back at the hut that night, exhausted. We were all sitting around. He'd been crying in the principal's office that morning. That evening, he shot his first deer. We cut the heart up. We stuck it in the fry pan. We ate it. He blooded his knife, and we talked about things like violence and how to solve problems. And we did it in a way where, first of all, he was able to get rid of all his energy, and we basically supported him. We didn't chastise him for knocking the other fella out. Personally, I think he did the right thing, but then again, that would also probably be debatable for a lot of people. But that kid never went on to bully him, and problem solved, bang. Whereas if it had been an ongoing problem, if it had kept on going, if people had meetings and talked about it and all that shit, I think eventually what would have happened was it would have escalated, and possibly, it could have got worse. So he could have even, who knows, could have even ended up taking his own life, because that's how things start. So, my fix for a lot of things is probably a little bit old school and controversial, but it does work. And that bullying stopped, and both those boys got on with their life.
We had previously on this radio program, Men Talk, Bryce Hawkins, and he was heavily involved with rites of passages for men tracks in Takaka.
Yep.
And are you aware of them as a model? And,
yeah, great program, excellent, yeah, fantastic.
Definitely, yep. And I've engaged that. My godson went through that process 20 years ago or so, so I've watched them from the beginning. But that core need for men to be, and I think for we're talking generalities, of course, but for men to be led by another man, an older man, to get together with older men and learn how it really is to be brought into manhood. And the core argument that the founder of Tracks would make was, if we don't tell them what a man is, they'll look to their friends to be told what a man is, and we don't want their friends telling them what a man is.
Depends on what their friends are. Is it like, you're right. Peer pressure is a wonderful thing, because you can actually use it in a positive way. And one of the things, a lot of the young guys that will come to me that smoke, what I'll do is I run these boot camps for boys. So like if I've got 4 boys in each camp, normally I do. If I've got a kid that's trying to join the program or wants to, and he's a smoker, I'll always pair him off with 3 boys that don't smoke. And it doesn't take long before he starts to feel like smoking's a dumb idea. But if you've got 3 boys together that all smoke and one doesn't, then that one that doesn't smoke, he'll almost be inclined to want to start smoking. So peer pressure can be used also as a positive, and I like to use it as a positive, eh?
Yeah, one of the reasons that we asked the question about, what people like about men is because we want to provide an idea for young men about what men are like, because it's not very PC to talk about the differences between men and women, and so I think a lot of young men don't really know what it means to be a man. So we need to talk about what it is and the good qualities more, I think.
Yeah, to say what we love about men is to love their great qualities and to invoke those great qualities, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, bloody oath. No, that is good. And it's almost like today when we're not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to talk about those things. And like I said, the pendulum's almost swung too far in the opposite direction, and it's great that you've got a program like this where you are encouraging that. But often, and I've come under plenty of fire, I've been called chauvinistic, sexist. I don't think I am. I think I probably overstepped the line a wee bit with some things, but on the whole, teaching also young men the importance of respecting women. For thousands and thousands of years, men had to fight for their village to support and protect the woman and the children of the village. For thousands of years, they had to go off and they had to get the food and bring it back. Suddenly, today in this modern world, men are finding that actually a lot of women don't need them. They can go off and do a lot of these things by themselves, and they're suddenly feeling they've been made redundant. Well, it's their responsibility to make sure they start making themselves useful again and getting out and applying their masculinity, applying their maleness, and pulling things back into line. That's not so easy as it done as it is said, because the environment we live in today doesn't really allow for that. And I'm a classic example. Here I am with this YouTube channel, and because it's showing something which is mostly predominated by men, hunting and fishing, the channel is actually put on restricted, to the point that someone who doesn't even have a YouTube channel steals one of my videos and they put it up, and bang, it goes viral because my message is a good message, but it won't get seen if I post it because I'm restricted by what I do. The whole algorithm is set against us men, and we're fighting it. We really are.
If you had one magic wish to make the world better, what would you wish for? Just one wish, no cheating.
I would wish that every father would do his job. That's been my wish. It's as simple as that.
That's beautiful. And I guess part of that would be that they're supported and enabled as well. But yeah, to do his job. Beautiful. I think that would fill in a lot of gaps in society. As much as you said something earlier about, oh, maybe we don't need men so much anymore. I think kids need their dad, biological, both parents, at a core level. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's interesting that most of the mass shootings around the world, except for Columbine, Columbine was actually 2 guys that got together. They did have fathers, I think, but just about every other mass shooting was done by someone who lost their father before, or didn't have a father before the age of 20. Isn't that interesting? Every one, there was a father was not present, the lack of it. So,
and as much as there's a focus on toxic masculinity, it's the lack of masculinity more than a surplus of it, quite possibly, that's harming our kids.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Daughters need fathers.
Yeah.
Sons need fathers. A lot of daughters that miss out on having a proper father are often inclined to be a lot more promiscuous when they're younger, trying to get that love back. So the job of being a dad, it's the biggest job that you can do in your whole life. And it's also the most rewarding job you ever do. I love being a dad, and I love it so much that I still carry on doing it to children around who don't have dads, because I love seeing these kids evolve into men, and it's a very rewarding thing to do. It's one of the most rewarding jobs that you can do as be a father, but we don't always get it right either. We make mistakes. I've done some stupid things with my kids, but one thing and I'll say this to all fathers listening, if you've made a mistake with your kids, or better still, sometimes say to your kids, hey guys, is there anything in your upbringing that you feel strongly about where I may have hurt you or upset you or may have done you wrong? Let's talk about it and then own it. And even if you don't think that it was quite like how your child painted, just validate what they're saying. I've done this with both my kids and it's paid huge dividends for our relationship. Now, we've got really great understanding and communication, because parents do make mistakes, but it's about owning them and allowing your children to work through them with you, and I think it's really important.
It looks like your arm might be giving you some messages, so let's wrap it up. All right, so thanks Clay for coming along and talking to us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I really appreciate actually being invited to your program, both of you. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, and I'm happy to come back at some other time if you want to chew the fat over anything regarding men's issues. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Clay.